what brought you into Freemasonry?
I'll go for it.
All right. Yatri, go for it, brother.
So it's really interesting. My parents had emigrated at a time where there wasn't a ton of people of my faith around. And my family had congregated outside of Philadelphia. And so every time we had religious or family events, we rented a hall, and happened to be a Masonic hall. And that was my first sort of introduction to that. So I started looking into what that was when I was younger. You hear a lot of things and you shouldn't believe them all, but not having met anybody, I couldn't ask questions. And then you fast forward to, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. I was living in New York, and I had a group of friends through Reddit, the New York Reddit meetup, and just having discussions, and Masonry came up, and I was like, hey, I wish I knew more about it, but the only familiarity I have is from the halls. And someone just said, hey, well, what do you want to know? And that was sort of what got the ball rolling.
One thing, Yatri, can you tell us a little bit about your faith background? I can see you on camera, and our YouTube live streamers can see you as well, but for our podcast listeners.
Absolutely, of course. So I come from a Hindu background. I'm Gujarati. Culturally, India is very, very diverse. So, where you're from, what region you're from really matters a lot, and shows and reflects in the traditions that you adhere to. Trends stick that way. I was the first in my family who's born in the U.S., and I was very grateful growing up with my grandparents. My paternal grandparents lived with us at home, and that's sort of how I got started on the path, because I would ask questions and I got some answers. They tend to be very practical answers, and that was really appealing. But that's not something that most of us have growing up. And so that sort of laid the groundwork. I had an interest in the practicality of things. I started studying Sanskrit on my own when I was my middle teens, 14, 15, 16. And then I went to Rutgers. I have a BA in religion. I was originally hoping to go into academia. I actually did a short postback at Columbia too. But the tech world called to me. I work in tech. That's my day job. I find so many actually interesting parallels between the tech world and my religious background. Frameworks are just frameworks, and there's just a lot of thinking in the abstract in both places. But I started doing the religious work just a few years ago. I got married 9 years ago, and I had a great family pundit. Then he answered all my questions, and I learned a lot. And my cousin was getting ready to, propose, and he asked, would you do the big Indian wedding again? I said, absolutely. So he started asking questions. I started explaining them, and he said, you should be doing this work. And I kind of laughed. I thought it was a joke, but he wasn't laughing. So why not? I said, well, there's a lot of memorization work, and there's a lot of public speaking, and, I'm not really great at those. And he's like, yeah, but the masonry work you've been doing, you definitely are getting better at the public speaking.
And the memorization work.
Absolutely. Because I was doing a lot of Masonic ritual at that time as a senior deacon, I think. So, that's sort of how everything kind of fell in line. And I started thinking about it, and I realized for the first time in my life, it was a real calling.